What's up, guys? It's time for a Star Wars Figuarts review. Today we're taking a look at the most recent release from Bandai Tamashii Nations. We're taking a look at Princess Leia, the New Hope version of the character here. So we've got her in the standard Figuarts Star Wars box, so you can see her there in the window. We've got all our accessories front and center. There is a product shot on the side, and then the back of this box has a bunch of product shots and all of the standard legalese in kanji down there. So let's pull her out and take a look. And here she is out of the package, our Figuarts Princess Leia figure. And this one's pretty interesting because of the fact, for me personally, we had her on pre-order for a while. And in the interim, two face printing Hasbro figures for Princess Leia have come out. Obviously not this Leia. We got Bespin Leia and Hoth Leia with photo printing tech. And we have the sort of updated original Leia that we got a while back, but it's not face printing. So there's some interesting space that this one occupies because we have some legit Hasbro figures to compare against. And I think it's going to be pretty striking to see what exactly they do when they're stacked up against each other. Of course, we're going to start things off here with Articulation and see how she moves around, because there's some interesting stuff here. Nothing too crazy, but we do have to see how she moves. So the head is on a ball, up, down, bobble side to side, rotate, all that good stuff. You have got arms that go out. They rotate. A little bit of a wiggle there. There is a slight butterfly joint here as well, so you can move her arms forward. You can go about 90 degrees on the elbow because of the robe cut, so they only go about that far. And then you've got standard Figuarts ball hinges at the wrist. She has a waist twist, so side to side, bobble, back, forth. And then from the waist down, obviously she's covered in robes, but she does have legs in here. The back piece is all one piece, so it doesn't really afford a lot of movement kicking back, but you can, move these robes forward. You see her space underwear there. Kick forward, she kicks out to the side. She can kick back, but the robes are obviously going to be in the way. Knee joint goes about that far, and then we have got a hinge down here, and then we've got rocker. But what's interesting is that the boot cut here overlaps the foot on the outside on both feet, so you can't really rock on the outside, it's just on the inside. And then you can sort of rotate it as well. So she has, pretty standard articulation. Her legs are definitely going to be hindered just because of the fact that she sits inside of the dress. But overall, I think you'll be able to get her into some decent poses. And I mean, this particular Leia, she doesn't have to be too dynamic. Now, as far as the sculpt on this figure goes, I mean, she's just in plastic robes, so a lot of the figure doesn't really have a great deal of detail on her. Obviously, we do have the legs that are underneath there, and there isn't much there either. They're just standard basic skin tone legs. She does have boots down here, which are, pretty standard for this particular type of character. And then they do have some paint on them. There's like smudging and just dirt and grime on them, which is kind of nice. The overall robes are pretty well covered in a shading. It's kind of a grayish light blue type of shading, just to see how kind of light hits off of it. It's kind of interesting. And then there seems to be a bit of an off-white shading on top of it as well. She does have her belt sculpted on here. Most of the time her upper part of her robes are going to cover it though, but you can see the silver plates that are all over the back there. And then she has, as far as how she comes out of the package, she has just got these kind of relaxed open palm style hands. And then we do have the hood piece, which none of this is soft goods. It's all obviously just rubbery style plastic. This piece pegs into two slots around her neck. It's kind of invisible. You can't really see them too well. And then it's just the draped hood that's on the back of her, and it's got shading on it as well. It might be a little hard to see with this, the quote-unquote studio kind of lights that I've got here, but there is some shading on this figure. Honestly, it's necessary. It would be incredibly boring to look at this figure if it didn't have it. You can tell just when you kind of flip the underside up, it's just a flat white compared to what looks like some reflective light shading that's on there. So it does look pretty good, but that's not what we're here for. The big draw for this figure, at least in some way, has got to be the head sculpt, the face, so we have to zoom in and take a look at that. So our first Princess Leia Figuarts, and here is our head sculpt. So this is obviously the, kind of cinnamon bun hair type of head sculpt that we get from A New Hope, from the first original Star Wars movie. And for the most part, I think this figure looks pretty good. I had been very concerned up until getting her that the figure on its own really didn't look too much like her. And even the packaging on the back shots on it, the promo images, I feel like they changed a few things from the promo shots until now, because I think this looks slightly different, slightly better. I do think there is maybe going to be a bit of a shock when this figure stacks up against the Hasbro offering, because frankly, Hasbro is giving Figuarts a huge run for their money, especially when it comes to Princess Leia. But for this particular figure, I do think the face is pretty good, especially at an angle. It looks really, really nice at an angle. That very much looks, you know, kind of like a young Carrie Fisher there. What facial features we have there are very straight and clean and crisp and nicely applied. I kind of wish that the figure had some sort of an expression. I say that a lot, and then I also don't really want it every time, but, you know, she's just sort of standing there, neutral style, not doing anything. But what they gave her does fit the character in some way as well, so it's not bad. We do, of course, have the, you know, cinnamon bun style hair, and this is really, really nicely done. A lot of texture, a lot of detail sculpted into the hair here. You can see just tons of lines, tons of paintwork, a lot of sculpted detail, which is really, really nice. It brings the figure to life a bit, I think, because this is honestly, the hairstyle on this particular Leia figure is easily one of the most defining characteristics for the character. Without a good, clean, you know, cinnamon bun on her head, I don't really think it would be a winning sculpt here, and I think they did a good job with that. Now, as far as accessories goes, we do have a pretty decent spread. It's not tons and tons, but I think she has exactly what she needs for this particular movie. So to start with, we have got a way to change her up, and that would be a different face. So you pop the cinnamon buns off her hair, and then you pop the head off, and then you can pull that face off, and then you can put the other one on just like any other Figuarts face. And this one has her looking slightly to the left. So this is to recreate that scene where she's kind of peering through the bulkheads on the blockade runner when she's trying to run from the stormtroopers. And then we have got the other hood option here. So the first hood option that she comes with in the package is the hood down. This is obviously hood up, and I think it looks pretty good. I like the way this sits on her, and I really, really like this particular face sculpt. It's not too much different from what we have originally with the just, you know, dead-on looking face, but this works really well, and it recreates a specific scene, which usually is what the extra faces tend to go for in many cases with Figuarts. So I'm okay with that. I think it's just as good as the other one, although I do prefer the regular one just in general. I think it looks more like Carrie Fisher at many different angles rather than this particular one. Now, beyond these two accessories, we do have a few other ones. So we've got a set of open but sort of gripping hands. So these are to grip the end of a gun, so the barrel of like a stormtrooper rifle. And then we've got two trigger finger hands, so you've got one for each, if you want to make her a lefty or a righty. And then we've got her stun pistol from the beginning of the movie, which is just done up in black plastic. She can hold it in either of the trigger finger hands. And then you've got a stormtrooper blaster rifle from like when she's on the Death Star running from the troopers. So she can hold this in either hand just fine. And then of course she has an accompanying hand to hold the barrel of the gun. So like I said, she doesn't have a ton of accessories, but she has basically everything you could need for her in this particular movie, in this particular look. And because why not, here is a quick comparison of Leia with some of the other A New Hope styled Figuarts. So we've got Han, Obi-Wan, Luke, although of course I didn't have to tell you who is who, just to give you an idea of what she looks like mixed in with some of these other figures, and to give you an idea of scale. She is on the small side. I think she fits in pretty well. Han is the tallest one. Obi-Wan and Luke are in between the two, but closer to Han's height, because Leia and Han are about a foot difference in height, and I think this works pretty well. She's at least a head shorter, so it works out all right. And she blends in with the overall aesthetic here. Of course, the real comparison we have to do is between Leia and some Black Series. So here's kind of the main event, I guess. We've got our Figuarts in the middle. We've got some Black Series flanking it. Hoth Leia on the left here. We've got Princess Leia on the right. And in some ways, these aren't really fair comparisons just because of what they're going up against, but it's worth showing because it's what we have. So Princess Leia's together, I don't think it's a fair comparison at all, really, because this is a Figuarts going up against the most basic of Black Series, really. This is a Black Series that's covered in fabric, so you can't really get a great deal of sculpted detail going on. And then, of course, we don't have photoreal. I do think that if photoreal existed when this figure came out, we might have a different comparison on our hands, because I think the sculpt is probably there. I just don't think the soft goods really work. So it's a no-brainer for me. This Princess Leia wins over Black Series for me, hands down. But in comparison to the technologies used, quality of paint applications, when you compare what Hasbro can do right now with photoreal, with Leia in particular, because this Hoth Leia is one of the best in recent memory for sure. I think it really shows that there is a turning of the tide almost between what you always thought you were going to get with Figuarts and what you know you can get now with a Black Series figure. So I'm not going to say that one's really better than the other, because they're not exactly the same thing. And the fact is, you know, I always want the added articulation of a Figuarts, but when it comes down to it, this is a really, really awesome figure that goes up against a import that is multiple times its price value. So you've got a lot of folks that might be making some changes to their collection just because of the fact that they are so very, very similar in terms of what you can get in quality. And in some cases, you know, you might find that Hoth Leia is the preference in terms of what people think looks more like Carrie Fisher. So it's an interesting comparison for sure, but there you go. You've got your Figuarts up against a couple of already existing Leia figures. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this figure. I think the initial face looks very much like Carrie, and I like the optional face and hood without having to worry about soft goods like with the Black Series. Beyond that, what we get is pretty normal Figuarts fare on the sculpt, paint, and of course we have a pretty solid array of accessories, not to mention the fact that we basically have completed the core of what we need as far as Figuarts go for episode 4 now, which is always great. It does, however, need to be stated that this figure is a bit of a turning point, I think, when it comes to Figuarts versus Black Series in the face department. The comparison between the two is really striking with Hoth Leia, and it shows that Hasbro is definitely on Bandai's heels at this point, in which could be a sea change for a lot of collectors. I'm personally still in for the long haul. I love the accessories. I love the added articulation with Figuarts. They're two different things for me, but it's striking to see just how close the gap is between the two. But for now, that's going to do it for this look at the Star Wars SH Figuarts Princess Leia figure from Bandai Tamashii Nations. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.